Welcome to episode 113 of How About the Huskies. As always, I'm your host, Connor, joined by just Matt today. Andrew is down in South Carolina where there is some snow, and he does not have power as a result of the South Carolina snow, which is pretty bizarre to say. So, just the two of us today. Andrew, of course, will be back for the next episode, but a lot to talk about in this one. You wouldn't think there would be a lot to talk about going into the game, but UConn needed overtime to defeat Butler 80 to 78. A game the Huskies led by as many as 15. They were up big at halftime, but the lead dwindled away. I feel like it's the same story every game, it feels like, with the lead dwindling away. But Matt, what was your overall thoughts on this one? Obviously, the most important part is that they pulled off the victory. They got the win, but obviously not the fashion you'd like to see Dan Hurley and his team do it.
Yeah, I mean, relying so much on the referees, like Hurley did last night, or at least blame them for it, kind of bothered me. I feel like there were many better sets that he could have ran. I feel like Solo Ball was obviously the man on fire last night, 23 points, but um, in the second half he was relatively quiet. At the end of the second half, going into overtime, they struggled to find him open looks. I feel like as a coach, you kind of have to take that responsibility upon yourself to get your best players the best looks. And I feel like we just weren't able to do that. Not in this game, not in Creighton, and not for a little bit since Liam's been out. Um, Caravan again, 8 for 17, another kind of inefficient night. Sure, 19 points, 7 rebounds, but it could have been even more than that. He took some weird mid-range floaters again, and they just haven't been going for him. Even though we won, it's definitely, kind of a punch to the gut here to only win by two in overtime against the Butler team, which is now 1-7, I believe, in conference. So, I feel like we should be talking less about the refs, Danny, and more about the actual play on the court.
We'll go to all negatives in this episode. Obviously, it was a win for the Huskies. We'll start with Solo Ball. Like you mentioned, he had a career high 23 points, hit some big triples, that three-pointer in overtime to give the Huskies the lead ultimately for good, even though it wasn't decided at that point because they kept on doing silly mistakes, giving up buckets. But Solo, like you mentioned, didn't take too many shots in that second half. Landon Moore was guarding him for Butler. He's a guy who's defense first, and he was kind of limiting him. But there was some grabbing going on, like Dan Hurley mentioned in his presser. The question I believe to Hurley was, why didn't Solo take as many shots or get as many looks in the second half? And Hurley, it opened up a door for him. He's talking about how they were grabbing the whole game and the refs weren't calling anything. But Solo, 8 of 14 from the field, 5 of 10 from three, 23 points. I feel like Solo, I mean, at this point, especially without Liam McNeely, I feel like he should be taking anywhere in the 12 to 14 three-pointers per game range, which is really high, don't get me wrong, but he's shooting 45% on the season. He took 10 in this one, hit half of them. Say he takes 12 and it's half of them, that's three more points. He's 6 for 12. Maybe he goes 7 for 14, something like that. So I want him to shoot the ball more. I feel like in a normal game he would take more shots. It's just that he was kind of locked up in that second half. The center play was pretty good as well. Samson Johnson, 14 points, 5 rebounds. Did end up fouling out. Terrace Reed had 14 points as well. I remember he was my player to watch. I said he was due for a big one going against a guy like Andre Screen, and he delivered 14.7 boards. A big bucket late to make it a two-possession game with 20 seconds left on what looked like another broken play for the Huskies. But yeah, I feel like you got to highlight, before you look at all the negative stuff, highlight Solo Ball and the play we had at center.
Yeah, so that was fantastic. He really could do no wrong last night. Like you mentioned, 5 of 10 from three, career high in points. I mean, you want to see that from him every night. You're obviously not gonna. You're gonna have your inefficient shooting nights, but if he can perform, like even half that or three-fourths of that, then yeah, you have a pretty quality player there. The big man play you mentioned, Samson, 14 points. Terraced 14 points as well, 7 rebounds, and some great hustle plays, 2 steals. They really did a great job down there, and I feel like, we previewed this game. This was kind of the complete opposite of last time we played Butler, where we kind of limited Telfort, but let everybody else kind of go off. That didn't happen this game. Telfort came out with 25 points, took 23 shots. They made it a point to get him the ball and get him these looks, even if they aren't the best quality looks. They understand the kind of player that he is. Like I mentioned, 25 points, 3 rebounds. And we kind of lacked that depth on our end. I don't know if Jalen Stewart was your player to watch this time, but he's kind of been someone who you've kind of needed since Liam's been out. He only took 3 shots, made two of them, 4 points, but that was about it. You needed him to I feel like be a bigger part of the game. They kind of relied on Ball and Caravan and the big men, which is weird. I mean, Haas took 11 shots, only made two of them, but nine assists. There's just like positives and negatives in everything here. Like the bench, like we could say it was a positive because Terrace had one of his better games of the season off the bench, but at the same time, he was the only player on the bench to have a good game, in my opinion. So, there definitely are positives, but like I mentioned, I want to see Hurley kind of take that initiative towards getting the right guys out there in the right positions rather than just blaming the referees for all of the miscues.
Yeah, and I feel like it starts on defense. And for Hurley, defense translates into offense. Jalen Stewart, like you mentioned, Telford had 25. Stewart was getting bullied by Jameel Telford down low. There was one possession where he was posting him up, and Telford just pretty much shoved him out of the way. It wasn't a foul. It's just Stewart not being as strong. Like you said, Telford, those 25. He didn't make a three. That's even more impressive. Oh, 7. I thought when he released that ball in the corner at the end, the rainbow arc, he was going to hit the game-winning shot. But that's part of why I said in the preview, I posed the hypothetical question of why should I expect UConn as a fan to win this game against Butler, even though they're 1-6, because Butler brought the toughness. We didn't bring as much toughness. I feel like we just out talented them, which is pretty much the same thing that happened when we played them out in Indy. We were up big. We had a great start to that game, but let the lead dwindle away. I don't think they ever, maybe they took the lead in that one. I don't remember if they ended up taking the lead, but I feel like just our talent, even though it's not where it's been over the past few years, it allows us to be able to beat a team like Butler, only by 2 at home, I guess, without Liam McNeely. But I don't know. I feel like it's weird to be talking about this kind of stuff after what we've had for the past few years, but I feel like that's just where we are, the state of the program.
And I feel like we're definitely close to the top of this Hurley Mountain here. I mentioned it in preseason and towards, the beginning of regular season. And even when Hurley got this Lakers offer, is that you can't continue to just praise him. You can't. It's impossible. I mean, you can all you want. It's possible, but if you continue to praise him for what he's already done, I mean, he's never going to improve again. And I mean, that's the last thing you want. He almost took that Lakers job, and oh my God, like NBA, like after 6 years in college, I mean, he was moving pretty fast, and he decided to stay. He won back-to-back national championships, and we made videos earlier in the season where we kind of criticized a couple things that he did or things that he said. And I mean, all year it's just felt like a weird kind of ego power trip. I don't know if you think the same things, but I mean, even from Big East Media Day, making claims about certain players being above certain players, not giving any explanation, just kind of trusting him, just kind of, just being told to trust him because he knows what he's doing. And then even through Maui, when, things weren't great and it was just more excuses, he was laying on the floor. And up to this point now, when he's yelling at a referee not to turn his back on him because he's the best coach in the sport, who ruled him that? Who told him he was that? Besides, national media, you can't continue to praise the guy for things that he's done. It's like praising the Bulls for Jordan winning those championships. They haven't done anything in 30 years. I just have a scary feeling that it's gonna be the same way with Hurley, where he had a very great success. He did a lot of great things for UConn, but if you continue to look at the past and not the future, like I feel like he's been doing all year, it's gonna be hard to make another deep run in March here.
And with Hurley, I feel like he's the type of guy, the perfect example of a coach. You love him if he's your coach. You hate him pretty much every other single fan base, like you mentioned, him saying that, oh, I'm the best coach, don't turn your back on me to the ref. He had a quote after the game talking about something like that. It was like, maybe if the cameras weren't on me 90% of the time, then you wouldn't see all this stuff just to get people to have like viral tweets about me melting down. And he said, he joked, maybe they have the cameras on me because it helps the ratings go up. I don't know. He's just like, I don't know if I obviously it's very arrogant what he's saying. I feel like arrogant's not the right term to use though. I feel like he's won and he's like proving he's won. I don't know how to really say that. I guess that is arrogant, but I don't know. I'm talking in circles at this point, trying to think about this. I hopefully we just move on from it. It's not a common thing every game, which I don't think it will be. But yeah, I feel like Hurley. I mean, the refs weren't great in that one. Don't get me wrong, but like you said, we shouldn't be blaming them. We should beat Butler at home. What we were favored by 12. We should have at least won that game by double figures. I feel like just talent v talent.
And I just want to say there's a reason the cameras are on you, Dan. It's not for no reason. It's been a long time coming here. Definitely improvement from the past few years of basically losing us some games. But um I mean, you're a great coach. He's a great coach. I don't know if he's listening to this, but fantastic coach. And we don't need all the extracurriculars. We just need the basketball because when we've had that, that's when things have gone right. When you tell players to go home and stare at their two national championship rings and you tell people you're the best coach ever, I mean, nobody's going to want to listen to you, man. So, um, fans want to see results. They don't want to see what you've done. They want to see what you're going to do next.
And one last point for me on this topic, then we'll move on. I feel like as a program compared to the past 2 years, we're down. They're beating us when we're down, essentially, because we're losing games. And every time I lose a game, I feel like it's a bigger story than if we win a game. I feel like that's not an argument. I feel like that's a fact on social media. Everywhere you see many more comments under a UConn loss on like a ESPN page than you would a UConn win. And for him to be acting like this, obviously we're what 14-5. We're not a bad team by any means. But I mean, based on last year's 37-3, the year before, what we went 31-8 or something like that, to already have five losses and to act like this, obviously, it's just it just helps the fans, or not our fans, it helps like opposing fans, like it gives them more of an opportunity to talk like this because it's not like we're 17-0 and Hurley's complaining to the refs. We're 14-5 and he's complaining about the refs and being arrogant. He's as of right, if we lost that game against Butler, I mean, it's tough to admit, and it doesn't really matter on January 22nd, but we're a bubble team pretty much. I feel like in the Big East, especially seeing how not weak the conference is, but there's a major drop off after the first four teams. If you're 13-6 with a home loss to Butler in there, obviously you don't want to lose to a team like Nova either. But we very easily could be talking a lot worse if Hurley and the team wasn't able to pull out a 2-point win against Butler in overtime. But yeah, I just feel like the opportunity that is given to these guys to heckle him like on social media is there because A, we're losing more often than we have in the past couple of years, and B, just he's kind of bringing it upon himself saying stuff like that. I mean, it's unfortunate they caught that on the mic. He probably wishes they didn't when he said that he was the best coach to that ref, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just unfortunate, and like I said, hopefully we can move it on past us. You got anything else about this game, Matt? The Butler game?
It was a lot closer than it should have been, and the refs weren't a problem until it was close. Just gonna say that.
That's well said. And luckily, this is our second game against Butler, so we don't have to preview another one until maybe the Big East tournament, but I don't know if we'd play them. So we don't have to reference this game again on this podcast, and I am perfectly fine with that. A game we will reference is the other overtime game we played this season against Xavier because we're previewing the game against Xavier this Saturday. Huskies traveling to Cincinnati, a game that's going to be really tough. We've always had trouble there. They were the team, Xavier. They knocked off our undefeated streak to start the season 2 years ago. What were we like 15-0 or 14-0 starting the year after that dominant non-conference play? So it's always a very tough place to play. Liam McNeely, I mean, I feel like he's not going to play. I don't think we've had a formal update there, but I feel like he isn't ready yet. I think they maybe hold them out for this one, maybe even the next one after that. Who knows? But before we really jump into this preview, what's your overall like thoughts and mindset going into this one, knowing what we just saw on Tuesday and even the last Saturday against Creighton? The team's clearly trending in the wrong direction based on where we were at the end of non-conference play. I mean, where's your confidence level for this game at Xavier?
My confidence level is exactly level-headed. I'm not too overconfident, but I'm not like not confident enough to where I think we're gonna lose. I can't believe that way after the past few years. I mean, even 2 years ago, that national championship team struggled this time of the year. They lost 3 out of 4 or whatever it was. I can't even remember, but we're in that same time of the year here. And what's to make me think that it's not just going to turn around like that again? I do believe that when Liam comes back, things will turn around rather quickly. But until then, I mean, you got to make the pieces fit. And I think we we kind of are, make pulling out that win in that tight game again. It's kind of defeating that whole Hurley narrative. He can't win close games, but Xavier's not a bad team. They're definitely not. If you look at their Big East losses and wins, I mean, they have 4 losses, and 3 of them are to 3 of the best teams in the Big East and UConn, St. John's, and Marquette. But other than that, I mean, they beat Hall, they beat DePaul, they beat Nova, they beat Marquette. We've lost to Nova already. I feel like it's going to be a good game. On the road, doesn't help, but we have road ready players. We need Alex Karaban to come back and be that guy that he's been, and hopefully bring us to a win.
Yeah, Xavier, I mean, since we last played them, both of our teams are going to look different from that game than on Saturday. For us, Samson Johnson did not play in that game. Terrace Freed started and had his probably best game as a Husky, 20 points and 13 rebounds. Liam McNeely obviously played in that one as well. He probably won't be playing in this one either. So for us, you take out McNeely, add in Sampson, and for them, Zach Fremantle didn't play. There was quite some uncertainty about where he'd even play again, if he'd ever play again this season with his knee injury. He is back and currently playing for Xavier. He's been back for a couple of weeks now, I feel like. So they added a guy and we added a guy but subtracted a guy. So it's really going to be interesting. Obviously, they have the home floor. I just feel like I'm gonna go back to that hypothetical point I made for the Butler game. I feel like it's more of a realistic point for this game. Why should I expect UConn to go to Xavier with what we've seen and win that game, especially with the way the Musketeers are trending? You mentioned they beat Marquette. They went to Fiserv Forum and beat Marquette last weekend. We're currently recording this on Wednesday night. I'm watching the game right here. They're beating St. John's at MSG by 10 in the second half. Those are the other two. Actually, not we're below that. I feel like those are the two top teams in the Big East, and they beat one on the road, and they're looking like they're going to beat the other one on the road, barring something special happening. But yeah, I feel like why should we expect to go into their building and win, especially when they took us to overtime in ours? And I feel like, I mean, Sampson's a good player, but I feel like Liam impacts the team a little more. So I feel like we got worse and they got better. So yeah, I don't know. My vibes aren't very high for this one. Hopefully, I can be proven wrong, and I have been proven wrong a lot the past few years. So yeah, we'll just see.
Honestly, the only reason I could really think of is why not? You know, why should we expect that? Because why not? I mean, all we've kind of been bred to believe over the past few years is why not? Um, we won the first national championship. We weren't really expected to do that. Why not? We we're looking to go back to back. They're saying there's no way. Why not? Why not be able to bounce back here in the middle of the season, and pick up a big win here? This would be a pretty massive win for the Big East schedule. If you're able to pull this one off, you move to 7-2, and you haven't had either of your games against Marquette yet. So you're in a pretty tough place here, but this one's pretty important.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because as negative as we're talking about the team, they're still 6-2 in Big East play, and they're in the top four in the conference, tied with Creighton, who I believe they obviously own the tiebreaker because they beat us. So we're fourth in the Big East right now, which that's still the NCAA tournament team. Don't want to look too far ahead there, but I feel like yeah, I mean everyone's talking how this team isn't it. It's not going to do anything. They're 6-2 in Big East play. I get that they've beat Butler twice. They beat DePaul, Georgetown. They're not the greatest of wins. Providence as well. But I mean, you play your schedule. Obviously, if it turns out we get the tougher games like St. John's and Marquette and don't beat them and end up what 11-9, 12-8 in the Big East, so be it. But right now, I feel like you shouldn't be reacting this way. As you, I'm not saying you, man. I'm saying as UConn fans, you shouldn't be reacting this way because I mean, 6-2 isn't half bad. At this point last year, through 8 games, we were 7-1 with the one loss being to Seton Hall. It's not that far off. Obviously, the vibes are different. But yeah, I mean, Xavier, they went 13 for 24 from three in that win, or in the overtime game, excuse me, against us. They hit 54%. I don't think they're going to do that again. So obviously, no Liam McNeely this time. He had 14 points in that one, some big shots. He was in foul trouble, I believe, though, so we didn't have too much of him in that one. But yeah, I feel like with Sampson maybe guarding Fremantle, that's almost not a one off one switch. But I feel like he could certainly disrupt him and throwing Terrace at him as well will be interesting. But we'll do matchups to watch. We've seen Xavier once. Who you got a matchup to watch in this one, Matt?
The two guys coming back. I feel like this one could really change the game here with Samson and Fremantle coming back. We've seen what it looked like without them. Now we got to see what it looks like with them. Hopefully, Samson can play more than 20 minutes. I'd love to see him stay out of foul trouble, but if he can keep Fremantle out of it, then I feel like we do have the pieces to come out and beat them. They have one other guy averaging, I think it's more than 10 points, Ryan Conwell. So just keeping Fremantle out of it. Don't let him get easy buckets. And I mean, if you got to bring Terrace in to do it, you got to bring Terrace in to do it. But I want to see Sampson have a lockdown defensive performance here.
You mentioned Conwell. He's going to be in my matchup to watch. I assume, based on who we'd have and who they have, Jalen Stewart would draw that assignment. He's been guarding some of the not top perimeter players on the other team, but we've seen him guard guys like he was on Jemiah Neal in the second half of that Creighton game. So I feel like he's going to be guarding Conwell. Conwell's a guy who scored 23 points against us in that first game. He's had a game not long ago against Villanova. He scored 34 of Xavier's 69 points. So he is a guy who can light it up. Against in the win against Marquette, he only had 6 points, but he's a guy who you expect to score. He's averaging 16 and a half. You expect him to get anywhere in that 16 to 20 range. I feel like stopping him and maybe shutting him down early with a guy like Jalen Stewart, I feel like might be the key. I mean, I don't think they'd throw Solo on him. Obviously, they wouldn't. Solo's defense is a work in progress, so let's leave it at that. But yeah, I feel like Stewart will draw the Conwell assignment. Stewart, I mean, obviously this isn't players to watch him, but he also has to, I feel like, step it up offensively, maybe get back into that double figures where he's trending where he's due to go like doubles, not doubles, doubles, not doubles. So he's due to get up there, but we'll go right into players to watch segue there. Who's your player to watch for this one, Matt?
I have two players to watch, and they're Alex Karaban and Hassan Diarra. Two guys who have not been doing that hot. Two guys who we need to lead this team. What kind of team are you if your two leaders aren't showing up on a nightly basis? Karaban in his past two games has hardly done anything in that game against Creighton, and then in this game, 19 on 8 of 17 isn't a night that you want out of your one of your leaders. And Hassan Diarra, 2 of 11, sure, 9 assists, but I mean, you got to step up, man. I don't care if you score 4 points on three shots. I just want to see you take that initiative and lead this team to victory. This is a weird part of the season where you're not sure like what's going on with the team, and you need guys to step up, and you need your two seasoned vets to step in and to take over and to win you games like this Xavier game. So I feel like if there's going to be any reason that we come out and win this Xavier game, it's not going to be solo ball. It's not going to be Jalen Stewart. It's going to be Alex Karaban and Hassan Diarra.
And for me, I'm fine with you taking two there because obviously no Andrew today, so we have one less player. But I'm gonna go Aiden Mahaney because he's a guy who only played 7 minutes in the game against Butler. He didn't make a shot. He only took two little floaters that didn't fall. He had two fouls. Just not a great game overall for him. Mahaney's a guy who I feel like needs to be able to play in the 12 to 15 minute per game range, at least on an average, to spell guys like Ball and DR some minutes because Ball played 41 in this one. DR played nearly 40 in the game against Butler. So having Mahaney, and he's also didn't take a three. I want him to be more aggressive from the perimeter. He's a guy who should take two threes a game. If he makes them both, that's awesome. If he misses, it's not the end of the world. I'd rather him take two threes than two driving floaters that don't go in because I feel like he's more effective beyond the arc. But yeah, Mahaney's a guy I feel like we're gonna need to get a couple buckets to really maybe spice up the bench play. Because like you mentioned against Butler, it was really just Terrace Reed. All right, you got anything else to close here, Matt? I don't either, so that'll do it here for episode 113, the two-man show. Andrew stuck in the snow in South Carolina. Next time you hear from us will be after the Xavier game, hopefully recapping a UConn win, but I don't know. The vibes are not high on the How About the Huskies podcast. Hopefully we'll be proven wrong. I really expect us to put out our best effort, but this is a Xavier team who's now up 12 against St. John's in the second half and looking like a team that's going to sneak into maybe the NCAA tournament. Who knows? But yeah, next time you hear from us, we'll be recapping that one, previewing our second game of the year against DePaul. That'll come next week. But until then, thank you guys for watching and stay tuned.